Animatronics refers to the use of robotic devices to emulate a human or an animal, or to bring lifelike characteristics to an otherwise inanimate object.
Start.
Hey, I'm Keys.
Hey, I'm Paul.
I'm Carson.
For our project, we decided to make a robotic owl.
It began with clockmakers in the 15th century and has since then evolved. The term audio animatronics was actually coined by Walt Disney himself when he started developing animatronics for entertainment and film. Coding these movements would be very difficult. One of our challenges was the coding, and we only had to program a motor to rotate counterclockwise and clockwise. We knew we would do things like this on a smaller scale, so we watched many videos of animatronics to try and get an idea of what we wanted to do. Buzz Lightyear is a more advanced animatronic at Disney with elaborate movements and good facial expression. They're implemented during video games, and they are often used during Halloween. One of the hardest parts of the project was finding out which one we wanted to create, so we advise you to begin early watching videos to get an idea for what you want to do. We ended up choosing a robotic owl who spins its head around.
For this project, we had to implement the engineering design process, which is composed of 5 parts: ask, imagine, plan, create, and improve. For the ask portion, we had to look at the problem statement, which was to design and build an animatronic figure that is capable of moving on its own in some way. The requirements and constraints for this project were that we had a $40 budget, the animatronic must be battery operated, it must move on its own in some way, and it must fit inside a cube that is 0.5 meters on every side. Next was imagine. So our group got together and came up with as many ideas as possible to solve the problem. And then we narrowed it down from there to find out which one we wanted to go through with. So we came up with a bunch of ideas involving moving stuffed animals, a robotic hand, and others. And what we decided to do was to make a stuffed owl that can move its neck 360 degrees. Our plan was to start out by buying a stuffed owl as well as a motor, and stick the motor into the body of the owl after moving its head. We would then have paper clips coming out of the motor so that it could connect to the head of the owl and be able to turn the head. It would perform basic turning first, and that would be controlled by a button on a circuit. Once we got the materials, we started creating the actual owl. So we put together the model of the owl, and at the same time we began making the circuit and programming the buttons to control the speed and turning of the motor. We used a breadboard and an Arduino board to control the functions of the motor. This is the physical owl that we used. So what we did was we cut off the head of the owl and stuck a motor in here with the wire coming through the back of the owl. And we had paper clips going through the parts of the motor just so we could connect to the head and allow it to spin freely. And once we got the basic functionality working, we improved the design of the owl by having the motor controlled by 2 buttons that could either be pressed or held to make the motor connect to the owl's head, turn one full rotation, or continuously rotate for however long the button is held for. One button would turn it clockwise and the other would turn it counterclockwise, and that's where we ended up finishing our owl.
While we did not face very many small challenges,
we did have to completely change course about halfway through the project. We originally planned on making a robotic hand that can move its fingers in ways similar to that of a human hand. During our initial research of materials, we developed a plan that we thought would have worked to build a robotic hand that fit into the budget and constraints given to us. However, after going through the design cycle with this idea in mind, thinking about what would be the best way to build the hand, we realized it would be too expensive to execute our original plan and had to start over completely, and eventually settled on a stuffed owl.
If we had to do the project over again, we probably would have started designing sooner because we didn't design until later on, and that's when we found out that our robotic hand was not going to work. We ended up placing third to last in the animatronic division.